All right, cool. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So, what is your name?
My name's Alana Sarfati, but I go by Alana Reina, which is my middle name.
And how old are you?
27, almost 28.
When do you turn 28?
July 23rd.
Okay. And let's see, who are you on a soul level?
On a soul level, I feel like I'm a lot of people. I feel like I've been around the universe a few times. I honestly don't know who I've been in my past life, but I very much believe in that. And I feel like for the age that I am, especially the age I look, because everyone thinks I'm like 21, I feel like I'm way more tired of the world's bullshit than someone my age normally would be. But I also feel like I have more of like a kind of calmness and peace with an understanding of the world around me than a lot of other people. So on a general level, I would say that's who I am.
Okay. Are there any life events or major happenings like in the world right now that affect your way of thinking or processing things?
Yeah, literally everything. I think that for as unfortunate as it is that we're living in the age of Trump, I think it's also a really like critical time, especially for people such as myself that feel like they are here to make a difference and make some sort of change and see the other side of all this craziness that's going on now. Are you fucking sorry?
It's okay. Okay. So, yeah, age of Trump. Continue. Critical times.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think, wait, sorry, what was the question again?
No, it's totally fine. What are life events, major happenings? Like, what life events or major happenings in the world have affected your ways of thinking or processing things?
Okay, so this might not totally answer the question in the way that you expected, but I think the more like fucked up shit happens, the more I realize that it's not possible for me, at least on a personal level, to just kind of have like this perfect, happy or chill life and not feel responsible for making some sort of difference in other people's lives, like other people are suffering. I've been back here in DC for about 2 years, and before that I was in San Diego for almost 3 years. Did have the perfect, chill, happy life. I was living at the beach and surfed, did yoga, went on hikes, just like everything you would imagine that someone in perfect sunny San Diego would do. And after Trump was elected and, you know, everything kind of changed, I just felt like, no, I can't do this anymore. I need to be doing something that feels like I'm actually making a difference for other people. And as much as I don't feel like an American per se, I've never felt like identified with the American nationality or culture or whatever, I do live here and I grew up here and I do have some sense of like belonging here, and I don't think that like for me to be in San Diego that feels removed or like to move to another country would be the answer. So that kind of frames my way of thinking and things that I do. I work at a nonprofit helping detain immigrants, which is another huge thing that's changed a lot since Trump was elected. So I don't know. I mean, I still do things that I enjoy and that are more fun and relaxed, but I think that without that underlying drive to make a difference and you know, help the world in some way, I don't think I could really go to sleep at night.
Okay. What is your background or ethnicity? Because I know people are gonna be curious. They're gonna ask.
So I am Jewish on both sides. My mom's side, or my mom grew up here in Silver Spring, Maryland. Her side is American for a couple generations, but before that, Russian and Eastern European. If you're Jewish or know anything about Judaism, you would know that's referred to as an Ashkenazi Jew. On my dad's side, my dad and his family's from Morocco, and prior to that, like before the Inquisition, they were in France and Spain, so there's like that in the background. That's considered a Sephardic Jew, and it's kind of complicated to explain, but those are like two totally different like races within Judaism, totally different cultural background, traditions, you know, the way people look, totally different worlds. So I always grew up feeling like I was mixed, of like mixed culture.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I think there's a lot of confusion when I go to explain it, because yes, Morocco is in Africa, but I'm not like African American, I'm not black, I don't really consider myself white. I also don't think that that fits into any other like race boxes, so I always check other.
Yeah.
But then that can be hard, because I think as much as people don't want to fit into a box, like there's something comforting about having a box to fit into, or like other people that at least somewhat identify the same way. And so I think that's always been a challenge, but I would consider myself a Moroccan Jew. And again, to some people that might make sense, most people it doesn't, but that's who I am.
Okay. Well, I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give you 3 categories, and you're going to tell me which one means the most to you and which one means the least to you.
Okay.
So the first category is love, sex, and relationships. The next category is society, culture, and politics. And the third category is spirituality and religion. So which one of those groups of things means the most to you in your everyday life, and which kind of doesn't?
So I would say, upon first hearing the categories, that they all mean like equally as much to me. I think in terms of like what I put most of my energy into, or have most involvement on a daily basis, I would say, fortunately, the love and sex and relationships has taken a backseat to other things, not necessarily by choice, but I think in part, you know, I've wanted to prioritize myself. I just started a new job this year, and I very much promised myself that I would just let that kind of play out and develop. And I know from my own dating experience that you can't force those things anyways. So I think that's something for me that it's like not really my time in terms of like romantic love. In terms of other types of love to my family, my friends, my dog, or whatever, that's every day. But we'll just say like that category is maybe like on the bottom. I think the most prominent in terms of what I give my like mental energy to, and you know, just regular whatever energy to, is the second category, which was
Society,
politics,
culture,
society.
politics,
Yeah. So it's something that, again, like I said, I moved back here because I wanted to be somewhere where it was a little bit more at the forefront of people's daily lives. Obviously, DC is a very like political place. People are a lot more aware of politics and just what's going on in the world. People are a lot more socially involved and active. There's a lot more activism here. There's a lot more diversity here, so it's just more apparent. That was like one of the reasons I moved back here. And then the other reason was to work at a nonprofit of some sort. Like I said, I work at a nonprofit that helps detain immigrants. We go into detention centers. We help certain people with their legal immigrant cases throughout the month that were not at the center. So that's like very intertwined with politics and society, and that's just every day what I'm putting my energy into. And then the other one, spirituality, is something that I haven't my whole life been consciously aware of, but since I did become more, I guess you could say, spiritual, it's been something that's always underlined everything that I do. And I think that for me, having that underlying awareness and energy regarding my own spirituality has helped guide me in everything else, and has helped me be at peace with whatever happens in my life. So it might kind of be like, you know, silent in the background, but it's always there.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to get you to draw something.
Okay.
And I want you to pick colors that represent your life and you as a person and your mood right now. You can pick as many as you want, but I want you to explain why you pick the colors that you pick once you pick them. And you can pick them all before you get into it. So what colors did you pick?
Okay, so like I said, I picked pink. It's my favorite color, and some people really don't care about color. I know a lot of people that are all black all the time or neutrals, but for me, being like surrounded by my favorite colors really just brings me joy, so I don't see why not.
Yeah.
The green, because it's just very like vibrant, reminds me of plants, and just like has that air of like healthiness. And then this is the closest thing to gold, which I also love. I don't know, there's something kind of like royal about it, and I just think it's a very good color. It goes with everything.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna give you this pad, and I'm just gonna ask you to draw for the rest of the interview, and you'll show what you draw after.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so first question.
Am I doing this while we talk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What makes you the most upset?
So I think that one thing that makes me really upset is lack of loyalty. I think that I'm a very loyal person, and I think that it's rarely reciprocated from friends, family even, guys that I date. And on a similar vein, I think that just like, you know, the energy that people put into relationships, both platonic or romantic, is rarely reciprocated. So that is something that's really frustrating. I also get really mad when people touch my stuff without asking. I'm very possessive of my things because I'm very just like particular about them, so I don't like people messing them up. I've gotten in many fights with my family over that. But then on a kind of like more large scale level, I would say like all the shit that's happening now with abortion bans and just restrictions on how people live their life, even like older things that are more kind of taken for granted, such as criminalizing drug use. You know, I had my experimental drug phase in college. I don't do drugs now, right? But I just think it's like, who the fuck cares if someone wants to do drugs? Like, let them do what they want. More likely than not, they're using it to a level where it's not harming them, certainly not harming anyone else. And I think that people are just like way too involved in what other people are doing with their lives. So that makes me really mad. I don't know. I try not to get mad at too many things, but I feel like sometimes I do overreact, and then I have to check myself.
Yeah.
But I think that's
understandable.
Normal. Yeah.
What excites you more than everything? Well, anything. I said everything. What excites you more than everything? Okay, what excites you more than anything?
Definitely traveling. I think that I feel most at home when I'm like not home and kind of just like exploring and lost in the world. I really, really love discovering different places and different cultures, and just that feeling of excitement of like, you know, going and getting lost in the streets of like wherever you are and not knowing what you're gonna find. And yeah, it's just really exciting. I love it. My goal one day is to get paid to travel and do other shit.
Yes, for sure. That is the goal. What is your favorite, I guess, place that you've been so far?
For sure, my favorite place ever was Thailand. It is so magical for so many reasons. I went alone, so I was there for 3 weeks alone, but it ended up kind of working out perfectly because all I had planned was my flight there and back and the first hostel for the first night. And from there, I just spent like the first 2 weeks I was traveling alone and would just kind of make friends as I went. Like maybe I'd spend a night at a hostel, so when we go to the next town and then they leave, I'd like either be alone or make a new friend. But it was so nice to just be on my own agenda every day. So even if I made friends with someone and we went to the next town, we wanted to split up for the day, we split up. Or, you know, she decided she wanted to go to this town, I was going to that one. We just kind of parted ways. Wasn't like we had to like, make a decision together or anything. But then what was crazy is that there was a family friend of mine whose dad had told me right before I left that was going to be there at the same time, just by chance. And we ended up meeting up one of the days. Had only planned to like spend like a day or two together, and we're such well-matched travel partners that we spent the last week together. She like extended her trip even to stay longer with me, and it was just so fun. Like, it's such a different culture. The food is so good. Everything is so cheap. Like, you can get an hour massage for $5. So I tried to get one like every day. The beaches are beautiful. I just really loved it. So that was some place that I felt was like the best of all different factors when you're traveling, of like that feeling of adventure and like a different culture, and then feeling like you could really experience a lot because it was so cheap. And for me, beaches are a really important part of traveling, and then having a good mix of like solo time, which I really value, time in nature, time in the city, and then time with other people. So I would highly recommend.
I love that. That's like a good 4 category like chart to go by. Time with self, time with people, time in the city.
Yeah. It was so well balanced. And I came back actually. Like, a lot of people get like culture shock when they go somewhere, but I had like reverse culture shock, and I was depressed for like longer than my actual trip was, because I just wanted to stay there and like keep traveling around Southeast Asia. I met so many people that were like there for months, just going like taking a bus from one country to the next to the next. It was so easy to get around, and it's so cheap. Yeah, it
must be nice to have the time to do that.
So yeah, that was dope.
That's awesome. What are you self-conscious about?
I mean, I have like physical insecurities that I think are obviously more in my head than like what anyone else can see. Like, I'm self-conscious about my nose. I always have thought it's like too big for my face. Like, I don't think it's proportional. I've always felt like my boobs were too small, like they're not proportional to the rest of my body. At one point I had insecurities about how big my feet are, because they're also like bigger than they should be for my height, but like that doesn't matter. Have definitely had insecurities about my hair. I straightened my hair for like the first 19 years of my life.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and like relax it and all that kind of shit that I feel like a lot of people do before they go natural.
Oh my god.
So, and even now I have insecurities about my curls. Like, I love them, but there's times where I'm like, oh, it's like to this or to that, which again, I think that's normal. I think like in the past 2 to 3 years or so, like 3 years, since I kind of started to have that shift I was describing before, of feeling like I can't really live in San Diego where everyone's just kind of like too chill and not aware of like what's going on around that bubble. It started to make me think a lot about like my identity and where I fit in with the world, and some of the things I was describing before. So I think that like honestly what I was saying about my ethnicity and how I don't feel like I fit in any boxes. I've always been someone that likes to be different and likes to stand out, or like, you know, doesn't look or act or like whatever like anyone else, like everyone else. I mean, it's hard. Like, I've definitely felt a lot of times like I like doing stuff alone, but there have been times where I felt lonely because I feel like I don't fit into any of the boxes that I want to, or like, you know, I have a lot of friends that I have a lot of now almost all of my friends are like women of color, and so I have like one set of friends that are like, it's very diverse, and then I would say like pretty much the rest of my friends, especially like one circle, are all like Black women. And I think that like both groups, but specifically like Black women, I very much like feel myself with, and I feel really comfortable around them. I feel like I'm much more like fit in with them and feel accepted by them than the like really white friends I've had my whole life.
Yeah.
And it can be hard for me because I feel like they don't judge me at all, and they like know who I am and know the whole like weirdness of like my ambiguity. But sometimes I feel like it's almost like I want to fit in with them in like a physical way too. Like it's kind of weird to me, maybe not to them, but to me, that I'm always like, oh, is someone gonna think it's weird that I'm like only hang out with black girls? Like, does this girl think she's black? Or like, this is something that's like been really hard for me because I don't think that they care, like any of my friends, but even like my family has made fun of me because they don't really like have they don't understand that my experience of who I am and my ethnicity, whatever, is different than theirs. And it's kind of hard to describe because you can be of the same ethnic or racial background as like your family, and like all my siblings have the same two parents. So obviously like all my siblings are like Jewish Moroccan, the same as me. But for instance, like my older brother just looks white, like white American. He has blue eyes, light skin, lighter hair.
So he can get in with them, like,
he's always
easier.
Yeah, he's always been friends. Like when we went to high school, I hated it because it was like all like privileged white kids, and like I never felt like I fit in, even if back then I was like making myself to look more white. Like I never felt like I fit in. And he did. Like he had friends, and he's still friends with those people who are all like very waspy white, like Republican, like not Jewish people. And so, you know, he's always been able to kind of like fit into that world. And he has his own insecurities. He has his own kind of like fucked up, like whatever. But it's like, obviously, if you look like a white American guy, the world that you've experienced your whole life is different.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, bottom line, it's different. And so, for him, and he's specifically one that's made fun of me, because, like I said, he's really insecure. I think he has a lot of problems accepting himself. So, in turn, he, like, projects it and, like, is always picking on other people and making fun of them and finding ways to like
he makes fun of you. Like what does
so,
he have
like,
to say?
He will be like, oh, like you think you're black, and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Like why would I think I'm something I'm not? And maybe like, and even like, you know, I think that a lot of people, especially black women, know like code switching is just like a way of life. Like you're gonna talk differently with like your family than your work colleagues and like the people you're comfortable with.
Right.
And I feel like when I'm with my friends, and not just like my black female friends, but also like my other friends of color, I speak a different way because I feel like I'm really expressing myself in the way I'm comfortable. And I think that can be perceived as me like trying to sound a different way.
But really that's people. Like who you are.
Yeah, and like
naturally.
So again, like I don't even really talk like that around him because like that's not someone I'm fully myself with, obviously. But, you know, I've like really actually opened up to him a lot about feeling like I fit in more with like those kind of people than others. And he's just like intent on misunderstanding me. So it's been really hard because, especially with someone you're really close with, and he and I are really close, but on top of that, someone like you can't cut out of your life. He's always gonna be my brother, and like it's more stressful to cut family out than anyone else because it's always gonna keep resurfacing. So we got in a fight a few months ago. I didn't talk to him for over a month because I was so angry, where he was like, you know, he came off as like he was really trying to understand me, and he's like, well, why do you feel like you are more yourself around like black people, why not Jewish people? And I tried to explain to him, on top of all the other things I've ever like explained to him about you know, not feeling like I fit in or whatever. And I was like, okay, so like you should know that based on how we grew up, our like Sephardic Jew, like the Moroccan Jewish culture we grew up in, is so different than like all the other Jews in America. Like I would never meet someone Jewish in America and instantly feel that bond with them. Like, oh, like you're like my people. And even like at work, like there's a few Jewish girls that work there, and like they honestly bother me. Like I don't feel like I relate to them. Like I would never want to like go spend a weekend with them if I didn't have to. And I just like, and again, it's not like every single black person I meet like, oh, we're instant friends, but I just feel like on a general level, I connect with them, or at least like other people of color, more so than someone who's like white and American and Jewish. So for me, that is not like a bond that I feel. And again, that's something that's frustrating for me because it's like a dichotomy between like identifying with something but then not identifying with other people that are part of that box. So anyways, I was like explaining that to him, and then I was explaining how like, you know, Black culture resonates with me based on like, you know, the music, the art, like people's ways of like viewing things, people's ways of expressing themselves, just like all different kind of like interests and like ways of being. And I was like, yeah, so basically like every part of like who you are, it like resonates more with me than whatever culture like maybe he identifies with. And so I like, and when he said it, he was like, I'm actually like, I want to know, like, I'm not bullshitting you. So that's why I finally was like, all right, I'll let my guard down and explain it to him. And literally I typed out like this whole long response. It was like multiple text messages, like pouring my heart out. And he not only like didn't read it, and I can tell he didn't read it because he immediately responded as I was sending like the last text. He sent me a picture of like, I think it was like Lil Pump or one of those stupid ass rappers who I'm pretty sure isn't even Black, with like tattoos all over his face.
Ew.
He sends me a picture, he goes, oh yeah, real relatable. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, A, you didn't read anything I said, so why the fuck did you ask me and like make me put all this energy into like giving you a like an earnest response? And B, you clearly just use it as an opportunity to mock me and a culture that you don't understand and don't know anything about.
Right, that's crazy.
And so
that's frustrating.
And it was like the end of a really long day at work. I was literally in bed, excited to like get to bed early, and then this happened, and I straight up had a panic attack because I was so upset and like blocked him and didn't talk to him for a month. So like he's definitely the worst of my family in terms of that. But I've gotten like from my mom, for instance, and again, my mom, I would say, is white. Like she's like the Ashkenazi Jew, so she doesn't have like any ties to the Moroccan Jewish culture other than my dad, and like that's complicated. It's another story. But you know, she also kind of doesn't understand, and she loves me and accepts me. There's no part of her that's like making fun of me, but I just don't think she gets it. Like she said to me multiple times, she's like, you know, you're white, right? And it's like, okay, it's fucking exhausting to have to explain yourself one time, to have to do it over and over is infuriating. Like, that's not just exhausting, it's infuriating because it feels like the people closest to you are just, like, intent on misunderstanding you. So anyways, that's, like, frustrating and infuriating. But I don't know, I think that for me, even though I know that like they're a small part of, well, not that small of a part, they're only a couple people, so it's not like I feel like I'm getting this kind of energy from everyone,
right?
But I just, some part of me always feels like a fear that someone else is gonna feel that way about me, and then it's like, what am I gonna say when they ask me? Like, I don't want to have to explain myself over and over to people, but B, it's almost like I'm still like trying to figure out who I am and like what box to fit in, or like if I even should fit in a box. And it's been really frustrating because it's not just like, oh, I'm figuring out like what color to dye my hair, like where I want to live or where I want to work. It's like who I am at my core, and like how I understand myself, and then how I can like present myself to the rest of the world. And it's been really hard. So I just have like that insecurity at all times that like I'm gonna be misunderstood, because I know what it feels like to be misunderstood, and it fucking sucks.
Well, I'm Black, and I don't think that you're I don't think that you're like, you know, doing too much. And you know, I see your Instagram, and I've spoken with you multiple times, and we've hung out, and I don't think that you're being like culture appropriating in any way or being disrespectful. I feel like you don't have to put yourself in any box. I feel like you can be whoever the fuck you want to be. Because that's what life is about. You grow into who you want to be and you see things that you like and then you magnetize those things. Like everything you love becomes a part of you. And like if you have a lot of people that you care about and love in the Black community, like who cares, you know? And who cares if you like music and fucking talk a certain way? Like there aren't certain things for certain races. Like there are, but you're not even like touching like all of that serious stuff. I
think it's become more like me figuring all this out is recent, but I don't think it's a coincidence that like right now there's like a pushback from like the general like Black culture in America on like white people stealing everything. And I very much like take the side of Black culture and feeling like you should fucking take back what's yours or like speak up against shit that's being stolen or appropriated or whatever. And I think that like even before I felt like I identified more so with Black culture or the Black community, and again like there wasn't really any of that in San Diego. I've always been like very passionate and also very outspoken about like racial injustice and just any kind of injustice. So I feel like anyone that knows me for like even 5 minutes knows that like I'm about that life and like I'm not about like whatever life like most white people in America are. But I think that like for me there's like almost like this constant fear of like, oh, is someone gonna just like put me in that box because I'm ambiguous and because they might look at me for a second and like just label me as that. And I shouldn't care what like some random stranger thinks of me, but I think because I'm like identify so strongly with like not that culture, like the white culture that I've always not felt a part of and felt like left out of and like not agreed with, that I feel like this almost like desperate need to distance myself from that. And yeah, I know that like people that know me well or like a little bit would never like think that I'm part of that, but it's just caused like some insecurity for me, to the point where it's like silly stuff like and I don't really straighten my hair much, but I almost feel like, oh, if I wear my hair straight out, like people are gonna assume I'm white. And it's like a stupid thing to think because it shouldn't fucking matter what people think of me if I'm white, Arab, which I'm not, or like half Black or whatever they might think of me. But it definitely does affect me, and especially here in like the DMV where there is a lot of, well, actually, according to some articles, the most gentrification in the whole country. I feel like it's kind of raised this situation where it's like you have to take a side, and a lot of times that side is like chosen for you. So I think for me that's been something that I think I've put like too much energy into thinking about, where I don't think I should, but I don't know how not to, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you for being so open. That really means a lot, and I know that a lot of people will be able to relate to what you're saying. There is so much I can say on this subject because obviously Black people too, you know, like we just started kind of, I mean, we've been speaking out forever, but more people just recently have started speaking out about, you know, us loving ourselves and how brown is beautiful, because I'm pretty sure all of us back in 2005 had like perms and were like, why am I not lighter, or, you know, whatever. So there's always a battle, and I don't know. I definitely agree with you. You shouldn't let what other people may think affect, like, I don't know, how you feel and who you hang out with. And that's why I asked you in the beginning, too, like, what your background and your ethnicity was, because you really can't tell.
No.
You really can't tell. So it's like, I don't think anyone's like looking like, look at this white girl with these Black women, because you could literally be anything. You could be white and Black, you could be Jewish, you could be Middle Eastern, you could be Spanish,
right, but it's like I'm not any of the things that people think I am. Right. So like, And again, like I said, like I've always enjoyed being different, and I think that like, you know, there's a part of me that sure on some level enjoys like if I go out for instance with like my black girlfriends, like every one of my friends, including you, is a bad bitch, and like I feel dope going out with a group of girls of any ethnicities that all are like looking like bad bitches, but like specifically if I'm out with black friends, of course I'm gonna stand out because I look different. And like as a Leo, of course there's like part of me that like relishes in that. But like, so then there's a couple different parts that go along with that. Like one, any like if there's ever a guy that I'm like talking to or dating, like a black guy that says anything negative about black women, like that's a red flag for me, and I will like go off on him, because I'm like, okay, I'm not, first of all, I'm not gonna be the token mixed chick that you're like shunning or like putting down black chicks for. Like I'm not cool with that. And second, like I have a lot of my black girlfriends, especially like darker skinned ones, have been like passed over for girls that look like me, and like not that it's necessarily my fault or my responsibility to like change that, but it makes me feel some type of way. And like if a guy's vocalizing something like that to me, it's like a turn off, because I have more solidarity with my friends than like some random dude that I'm talking to.
For sure.
So there's that, and then there's also like on a separate note, certain situations where I felt like, okay, like yes, I feel solidarity with black women. And again, like I said, I have friends of other ethnicities, but for the point of like this conversation, we'll keep it to this. Like I have solidarity with them. I feel myself around them. I feel very much also accepted by them. But there's certain times where I feel like I need to like step back and like this is not for me, or like this is not my place to like speak over someone. Like and this could be any situation, whether it's like on Twitter or like, you know, in real life, whatever. And so I kind of like feel like that's something I personally, as like a responsible person, need to be conscious of, that like, yeah, I might be accepted into like certain circles or settings, but like it's not always my place to like fully partake. One example is like last year a couple of my friends went to the Black Alumni Ball or Gala or whatever, and like a couple of them asked if I was going, and I was like, no, like why would I go and get all these like dagger eyes from people who clearly don't know anything about me or like anything I've just described in this interview, and are just gonna assume that I'm like here to steal a black man, or like why is this like possibly white chick here where it's like supposed to be for only black people. And it's like, I think there should be spaces where black people can just be with black people. Like I totally believe in that. And so I'm so conscious of all these things, and like not wanting to speak over anyone, even if a lot of times I'm speaking like in support of them or like to advance them or whatever. But then obviously there's a part of me that like, in addition to feeling a little bit left out, have just come to like really love and like see so much beauty in like those cultures that I'm not a part of. And so like there's a part of me that really loves my culture and like loves being Moroccan, and like, you know, I've gone to Israel and like felt like I really fit in there because more or less that is kind of like the homeland now. But then there's a part of me that's like, I would give that up in a heartbeat to like be part of this culture that I'm like, I love so much. But that's just not an option. Like that doesn't, you know, it's not like a sexual orientation. You just choose one day to wake up and you're black. So again, like I've never like said that I'm black or pretended to be, but of course there's a part of me that I think a lot of people now are like wanting to be black, or like saying they want to be black, but really they just want like the big lips and nothing else. And so then that's another thing that I feel like I have to be like super vigilant about, because, you know, there's all this accusation and like rightful accusation of white people wanting to take all the like cool fun parts of black culture and then like continue letting black people suffer for all the things they've been suffering for like generations and generations. So I don't, it's so much that goes into it, and lot, so much that I'm like, I feel like I'm too aware of all this shit, and I'm still just figuring out like, where's my place? Like I know that right now from like the outward perspective, I'm just like doing me, and I have my own like, you know, circles of friends, and I have my blog and my job or whatever. But there's definitely a part of me that feels like I'm just continuing going from like one group to the next, and I don't ever like 100% feel myself in or like a part of. So that's also something that like throughout my life has been hard, of feeling like a loner that can kind of like fit in with a bunch of different groups, but I'm not ever like one of them.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's definitely a challenge.
I've felt that way too, you know? Like, I feel like everyone has. I mean, I definitely understand you. Not feeling like, I don't know, like you specifically belong in like one space. I don't know. I mean, outside looking in, I never would have thought that you felt this way. And I don't think that you come off to like strangers. It's like, oh, who is she?
Yeah.
You know. So don't put too much thought into that, because I really don't think anyone's just like her shit. You know what I mean? And even if you would have went to that ball, I genuinely don't think anybody would have been like, get out, you know, or just giving you daggers. I feel like people would have been like, she's here with someone else that's here, or she's knows everybody here, or she's, you know, learning, or, you know, whatever. Like, and I think that's another reason why I'm doing this project, so everyone can feel more like, and it shouldn't be like, what box should I fit in? Like, I feel like eventually, my hope is that you'll feel comfortable just being the blend of all of the boxes, because that's totally possible too, right? Like, I'm black, but I don't have like a huge ass, and I don't, you know, there's certain things in black culture that I love, but I'm like, oh, that's not me, or I don't necessarily like relate, you know?
Yeah.
And that makes me feel crazy sometimes, because I'm like, okay, like, are they gonna, you know, say I'm too white, or like, am I like, you know, being bougie? You know, it's just like so many different things, and everybody's so different. So even if you are like a part of a race, it's like, you know, where do we really go? Like, all of us have that feeling of like, who are we really? And there are some people who are like very black, and there's some people who are like very white and like very Jewish, and like, you know. But for most of us, especially in our generation, I feel like we are all kind of melting pots at this point. I think all of us are trying to understand each other on some level and want to like explore. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think you're wrong in that. And you're aware, like you said. So you're being very careful to not be, I don't know, stepping over boundaries. I feel like you're really respectful. And I think it's dope that you're trying to have friends in a different culture, because I feel like a lot of people are kind of terrified to step into like the black pool. Like, yeah, they want what we have, but they won't talk to us and really try to like get to know us, because they think we're like angry, or like gonna steal their shit, or like fight them, you know. Like, it's very stupid, but it's true. And so I don't know, I'm just so grateful that you were this open and honest, because I feel like there are tons of people who feel like this, and I know I feel like that. You know, you're just not alone. And these are valid feelings.
I think the only person I've ever, like, not even met, but, like, heard this kind of feeling reflected is Trevor Noah, the comedian. He has a book, which, if anyone hasn't read it, it's fucking hilarious. You should read it. But he grew up in apartheid South Africa, which is, like, makes our racism look like fucking child's play. And he's mixed, which is different than like, he's colored, which is different than being mixed, because it means both of his parents are like colored, which basically means he's just like a mutt of like generations of mixing, whereas a mixed person, at least in that culture, would be a black parent and a white. Okay. I said it wrong. He's mixed, black parent, white parent, whereas colored people, like I said, are mulatto. Like, they've just had generations of mixing.
And this is what they call them in South Africa?
I think still. But, like, a colored person who's been mixed for generations, they're all mixed, that is, like, a separate race. And then, like, white and black are separate races. So to have a black parent and a white parent is illegal. So he grew up not being able to live with his white dad and living with his black mom and her family, But because he was light-skinned, he wasn't allowed to be seen in public with his black mom, so they hired a light-skinned nanny to pose as a mom while the mom, like, trailed behind.
Oh my god.
So he had a rough childhood.
Yes.
But then on top of that, because he was, like, black parent, white parent, and not black or white or colored, then he just never felt like he fit in. But he, like, along the way learned, like, all the different, like, indigenous, like, tribal languages, and Afrikaans, which is, like, the colored language, and I think English. So, like, he was describing at one point in high school, he would just go from, like at lunchtime, from one little group to the next, like, just kind of, like, fitting in like a chameleon, but never really, like, being a part of any. And on top of, like, looking ambiguous, I also speak 4 languages, so I can very much, like, do the same thing, kind of, like, be a chameleon in other cultures.
What languages do you speak?
I speak French, which is not from my dad's side because I learned it in school, but, like, that's what my dad's side speaks. I also speak Hebrew, which most Jewish people actually don't, but like I said, when I went to Israel, I felt like I fit in because I speak that there. And then I also speak Spanish, which I use every day at work. So that's really helpful, but is not, like, something really people in my family speak. But then it also creates a lot of confusion because if I speak Spanish, they're like, oh, she's Latina. No. If I speak French, like,
people might think you're French.
I think I'm French or, like, something else. And then you know, when I say I speak Hebrew, or if people see my necklace, which is my name in Hebrew, they'll be like, oh, you're Israeli. And that's another, like, confusing thing, because I'm like, I'm not Israeli, but I'm not Israeli. But anyways, tough. Yeah, like, yeah. So that book, like, I was, like, crying when I read this, because I was like, me too, like, I feel that. It's hard, like, it's so hard being, like, again, like, either a mix of any race or culture, I think, is really hard. But then also, like, you know, you were saying, like, being a black person, but then feeling like you have interests or, like, parts of your personality that aren't, like, black, and, like, oh, are you gonna be called out for that?
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like it's so easy, one, for everyone to forget that everyone else has so much of their own shit going on that, like, no one's paying attention to all the shit you think they are. But then on the flip side, I think there's just, like, a lot of, like, energy that's been, like, bubbled up over the last few years, which is, like, manifesting in a lot of, like, hurt feelings, or, like, people lashing out at each other, and just, like, you know, us kind of, like, trying to come to terms with each other as, like, a country, and, like, all these different little, like, factions and splits in between. So I think it's kind of, like, a volatile time in general.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm having this kind of personal crisis at this time. But yeah, I mean, these are just, again, like, what's been going on for me the last few years. I'm sure that 10 years from now, I'll look back and, like, smile at the fact that I was, like, having such a crisis over something that then in the future seems so insignificant.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, even though I'm 27, which to me feels young, I feel like I'm, like, I guess at the end of my 20s, where the 20s are supposed to be, like, where you really figure out who you are. And I think if I'm actually giving myself credit, I've done a pretty good job of, like, exploring that. And my hope is that when I start my 30s, I have a little bit more, like, understanding and, like, grounded, like, energy in terms of feeling like I'm comfortable with who I am, and, like, not only comfortable with who I am, but, like, know who I am, and can actually, like, sit here and talk about it with, like, certainty, and not feel like there's so many unknown variables or, like, things to be insecure about.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the last question, and then I'm going to get you to show your picture. What do you have to... Nobody ever finishes, really, so it's fine.
Okay.
What do you have to say to the world?
I mean, I guess just drawing off what I just said is, like, everyone's going through it right now, like, on a personal level, on a collective level, on a global level. We're all fucking going through it. So just, like, try and have some compassion and understanding, and, you know, try not to project whatever your experience is onto how you understand other people. And go to therapy. Like, I need to see a therapist too. We all fucking need to. Please see a therapist and, like, fucking end this stigma about therapy, because all the shit I just described, I've like, you know, come up with on my own through reading and journaling and like crying a lot and just like living it. But I do feel like I need a therapist, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people who are much less equipped than I am to deal with that kind of stuff, and probably have more stuff to deal with, or like just different stuff. So yeah, there's like nothing wrong with that. That's my takeaway message here.
Okay, perfect. Show me what you drew.
Alright, so I'm not done, but as you can expect, something with pink and gold and plants is kind of like that.
Oh, literally?
Literally. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of suck at like drawing just from my head.
No, it's fine.
So I
It
just
looks
draw
great.
something that I would like, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. This has been
Thank
beautiful. I know it's going to help so many humans.
I hope so. Alright, this is Alana, and this is In the Flesh.
Cool.